call your attention to Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2. We're going to do something a little differently tonight. Well, not really differently, but the format, I guess, will be interesting. Remember, we are this year, our theme is, of course, imagine that, but last year, the Lord, or the year before last, actually, the Lord proclaimed to us that the season that we were in a season of retreating, reloading, and relaunching. And I want to take tonight to kind of revisit that whole idea of retreating, reloading, and relaunching. I think everybody here is pretty much aware of why we were even given that particular marching order a couple of years ago, as we are in the process of rebuilding. A lot of things happened, and we found ourselves having to rebuild, moving from place to place, and finding a place that is stationary for a long period of time. And of course, when you experience transition, you will always experience some sort of not only shift, but sometimes things will be lost. I was talking to my childhood best friend, Mark Wilburn, today, and he was telling me he just gotten off the road. He was taking a load as a truck driver. He was taking a load up to the Poconos, up to Pennsylvania, and that he went around a curve, and when he went around the curve, the door flew open, and when the door flew open, some of the product fell off. And the point was that anything that's not tied down will fall off. When you're in transition, anything that's not tied down will fall off. As you're moving, stuff is shifting anyway. But if it's not tied down, if it's not bolted down, it will fall off. And so, as we are in this phase now of we're reloading now. We're reloading now. We have yet to relaunch. I want to show you some things that are really interesting by way of parallel of the church in Acts. It's the first church, but I think one of the things that we fail to realize is that it was Jesus's intent was never to start another religion. He said, I didn't come to break the law. I came to fulfill it. I didn't come to start anything new. What I literally did is I came so that I could reform what was. Reform what was once properly formed but became deformed through situation, circumstance, hook and crook. So when you read about the church in Acts, what you're reading about is not people who were trying to start something new. These were people who were literally forced out because they had embraced what I call progressive revelation. Progressive revelation. So, what I'm about to read in the text will tell you that they weren't trying to start something new. They were literally just trying to go to the next level. Did you hear what I said? They weren't trying to start something new. They were trying to go to the next level. Because the text says, and we're in Acts chapter 2, look at it, verse number 40, it says, and with many other words, they testified and exhorted them, saying, be saved from this perverse generation. Then those who gladly received his word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them, and they continued steadfastly in the apostle doctrine, and in fellowship, and in breaking of bread, and in prayers. And fear came upon every soul. Many wonders and signs were done through the apostles. Now all who had believed were together, and they had all things in common. They sold their possessions and goods and divided them among all as anyone had need. So daily with one accord, in where? Verse 46. In where? So daily continuing in one accord where? Where? Now remember, the temple was the meeting place for all of the Jews, all Israelites, all who are of Israel. So if they were trying to start something new, they wouldn't have been going to the temple. So they were trying to continue in the traditions of Israel. They were trying to continue in the traditions of Israel. So what I want to suggest to you tonight is that instead of us really like trying to start something new, we're trying to continue in the traditions of the temple, the traditions of TCI, as it were, but we're doing it based upon what I call, again, progressive revelation. We're seeing things differently. If ever you're going to grow in your relationship with, and I'm saying this to you as an individual, and I'm saying it to us as a body, if ever we're going to grow into who God has created us to be, we must be willing to grow in what I call progressive revelation. You can't stay stuck where you were. Tell somebody you can't stay stuck. We cannot stay stuck where we were. And this is going to sound interesting. I'm reading a book. I was given a book by Bishop Pat McKinstry. And it's written by Jay Patrick. It's a book entitled 21 Things Your Pastor Would Like for You to Know. 21 Things Your Pastor Would Like for You to know. Right? So let's call this progressive revelation. We're going to call it progressive revelation tonight simply because y'all never heard me speak up on my own behalf. I've kind of depended upon other people to speak up on my behalf because I didn't want to sound self-centered. I didn't want to sound or seem selfish. I didn't want to appear to be arrogant. I wanted to trust your heart or trust that the heart of the people was where the heart of the people needed to be. Like Paul said, I didn't come preaching myself, I came preaching Christ. Right? So I've been very, very careful not to preach myself or not to even give the illusion of preaching myself. Does that make sense? Because there's a thin line between creating a culture of honor and creating a culture that is controlling and that makes the leader what is known as a demagogue, right? There's a thin line between saying what God says in terms of the pastor-pew relationship and being manipulative and controlling. Y'all know I'm right about it. You have at least heard of at least one experience where it was almost like they said it was a cult. Right? That it had cult-like appearances, you know? Cult-like characteristics. So I've been very, very careful. I'm a third-generation preacher pastor. I've seen how that works. So I've been very careful not to present that kind of persona. But what does happen is, and I'm hoping it's not too late, what does happen is that if you don't address issues like this, then we'll be like Israel was in the day of the judges. Because there was no king, because they honored no one as king, everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And that became a problem in Israel. One of my mentors, Apostle H. Daniel Wilson, I'm not going to be long tonight, I promise you I'm not. I feel very uncomfortable teaching this stuff, but I got to do it. So one of my mentors, H. Daniel Wilson, said something to me a long time ago. He said, I figured out the tragic flaw of every character in the Bible. We know Jesus didn't have one, but I found out the tragic flaw of every character in the Bible besides Joshua. And y'all know me because I'm a student. I studied. And I studied the book of Joshua for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I couldn't find Joshua's tragic flaw. I went all the way back to Exodus and Numbers and everywhere he was mentioned and couldn't find it until I started reading through the book of Judges and I read those words that I just said to you. And because there was no king in Israel, everyone did what was right in his own eyes. When Joshua died, watch this, he did not create a culture of honor. He didn't teach people how to respect the leader. Moses was respected. Hello? Joshua didn't raise up a mentor, and therefore, because he didn't deal with the issue of a leader being in place to lead, Israel moved from being led by a prophet to being led by judges. And they spent years, y'all need to hear this, and they spent years going into what was called apostate state or apostasy, turning away from God. Because whenever, watch this, whenever there is no honor for leadership, you will eventually always turn away from God. It's always been God's way. God said, Moses is my set name. Joshua is my set name. David is my set name. Even in the New Testament, he says, when they're up on the mountain, and Jesus is standing between Moses and Elijah, two former leaders, and Peter says, it's good for us to be here, Lord. Let us build 3 tabernacles. One for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for you, Jesus. And God speaks up. The only time that men heard God's voice in the New Testament, God speaks up and says, this is the leader. This is my son. Hear him. And Jesus continues to reinforce that by saying things like, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. I am the bread of life. I am that water, that living water. If you drink of me, are you hearing what I'm saying? And no one was any more humble than Jesus. But he had to, every once in a while, deal with his position as a leader. And not just his responsibility to the flock, but the flock's responsibility to him. And if we're not careful in church, we will always be focused on what the leader's responsibility is to us as the flock, but not on what our responsibility is to the leader. Y'all okay? Y'all sure? There is a relationship between the shepherd and the sheep that is reciprocal. It's reciprocal. There should be, you know what it means to reciprocate, right? It means if you do something for me, I should do something for you. That's how any relationship works. Any relationship that's going to work has to be reciprocal. You hear me? As much Holy Ghost as Diane has. As much Holy Ghost as Diane has. If Troy ain't reciprocating in some kind of way, I'm trying to paint you in a good light. There must be a reciprocal relationship. Are you here? Think about your own life. Whoever you are in right relationship with, the relationship is reciprocal. I'm not saying this about any people who are parents in here, but if we have any parents, if a parent has 3 children, right, and only one is showing the honor that is reciprocal for what the parent has been providing, I don't care what you say, that child is your favorite child. Y'all don't want to say amen? All right, since y'all, Sly Stone said, one child knows to be somebody who just loves to learn, another loves to learn. Both kids are good to mom, but love thicker than the blood. Y'all remember the song Family Affair? It's always, I'm telling y'all, there is always the fact that relationships that are reciprocal are the ones that are the strongest and the most beneficial. Can I show y'all something about the pastor or the shepherd-sheep relationship that is reciprocal, so I can just kind of break the ice, because y'all a little tight right now. If I show y'all scripture, would you believe it? Huh? Would you also believe that I ain't twisting it just for the sake of having this discussion? All right. Turn to Proverbs chapter number 27. Proverbs 27. And I'm gonna go back to Acts and show you what I'm talking about. Then I'm gonna read just one thing that the pastor wants the congregation to know. And then we're gonna get out of here, all right? It's 8:07. I promise y'all have you out of here by 8:30. You're gonna be on your way to your car. Proverbs 27. You got it? Proverbs 27. I want to look at verse number 23. I quoted this in one of my introductions at the leadership boot camp last week, but I want to raise it for our discussion tonight. Proverbs 27, verse 23. You got it? Here's what it says in the New King James Version. Be diligent to know the state of your flocks. Speaking now to shepherds. Be diligent to know the state of your flocks and attend to your herds. For riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations. Verse 25, when the hay is removed and the tender grass shows itself and the herbs of the mountains are gathered in, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. You shall have enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and the nourishment of your maid servants. I want you to hear this now in the Message translation. And because I really am going to be done by 8:30, I mean, we're going to be walking out by 8:30, and hopefully I'm done with the teaching by 8:20. If we want to have some discussion, let's have some discussion about it. Is that okay? All right. Proverbs 27. I want you to hear this in the Message translation. And again, we're starting at verse number 23. You got it? Those of you who have these Bible apps on your phone, you can find it also on your Bible app in the Message translation. Proverbs 27:23. Know your sheep by name, carefully tend your flocks, do not take them for granted. Possessions don't last forever, you know. And then when the crops are in and the harvest is stored in the barns, you can knit sweaters from lamb's wool and sell your goats for a profit. There will be plenty of meat and milk to last your family through the winter. So what he says is that the pastor shepherds the sheep, right? If the shepherd values the sheep, understand, and this is a whole other conversation. He talks about like the crown's not going to endure forever. Like you ain't gonna always be in the spotlight, right? You ain't gonna be the Kevin Long you were when Temple was without a pastor and they called him and the whole church was following him around from revival to revival. You remember that quote? From revival to revival, and I wasn't even a pastor yet. I had more folk going with me to revival before I became the pastor than after I became the pastor. I'm dead serious. Every time I looked up, I was like, where they coming from? They bought the choir a couple of times. I'm like, I don't pastor the church choir. I was like, grab your choir. I guess they are. The honeymoon period will always wear off. The honeymoon period will always wear off. Let me say this again. Those of you who are married, who've ever been married, you know that at some point the honeymoon period wears off. Hello? Yeah. When y'all first got married, he was putting the socks together and putting them in the dirty clothes bin. Underwear, he would fold his underwear, dirty underwear, and put them in the bin. Because the honeymoon period is, I guess it's like a 90-day probation. If I can just keep her on, 90 days, then, after 90 days, on day 91, I start throwing everything in the corner and all that kind of stuff. The honeymoon period wears off. Yeah, listen. It wears off when the fact that you like each other starts waning. And then you just gotta depend on love. Because you do know that you can love somebody and not like them. Diane, just look straight ahead. Look straight ahead. You can love somebody. Honeymoon period where, but here's what it says. It says that if in fact you are diligent to know the state of your flock, if you are there for your flock, there will come a day when who you've been taking care of and you've been there for would be there for you. Amen. And that's what he's talking about. He's saying that the wool from the sheep will provide your clothing. And the milk from the goat will be your strength. Is that what your Bible says? Make sure that the field is sown with seeds, that the seed grows, that the people eat, or that the sheep eat. Because when the sheep eat, as they get healthy, as they get strong, as they mature, their wool will be that's the reciprocal response. Mm-hmm. That's the reciprocal response. In John chapter 4, you ain't got to turn there. In John chapter 4, story of the woman at the well, powerful story, very powerful story. Here's one of the things that we overlook. One of the things we overlook is this, that when the reason Jesus stopped at the well was because he was thirsty, but he wasn't just thirsty. He was also, what? Hungry. Okay, let me show y'all this in the scriptures. So we shout about this relationship between Jesus and the woman, the conversation that they have, all that kind of stuff. But it all starts, Jesus is at the well because he's tired and he's thirsty and he's hungry. And I want to show you something as it relates to a reciprocal relationship. Now, I wish I had time to really just do this in a leadership setting. Because earlier in John chapter 4, the Bible says that Jesus made more disciples than John the Baptist, even though Jesus didn't baptize himself. Well, let me read it in your hearing, because I don't want y'all to take my word for granted. John chapter 4. John chapter 4. Verse number 1. Y'all got it? Therefore, when the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself did not baptize, but his disciples, stop. Let's stop. If I was dealing with this in the leadership meeting, Mary-Tal, here's what I would say. I would say this, that because Jesus did not baptize, but his disciples did, he had delegated authority to his disciples. So his disciples have a certain degree of power. Are y'all know what I'm saying? Yeah. A certain degree of authority where they are operating at a ministry level that they would not have been operating in if Jesus had not empowered them, if he had not invested in them, if he had not poured into them. You understand what I'm saying? They were making disciples for him, but they were making disciples. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of Jesus putting his hands on them, he said to his disciples, you can put your hand, you can baptize them. And so the disciples were operating in a level of authority, delegated authority that they'd gotten from Jesus. That's the first thing I would say to leaders. Every leader has to be provided a platform. Let me say it again. If you are a leader, if you are a delegated leader, if you are a titular leader, somebody has to give you a platform to operate in your gift. So these disciples who were baptizing would not have been baptizing had not Jesus delegated authority to them. Of course, we understand that he gave them power over unclean spirits and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole nother lesson. But look at what happened in the text. Text says in verse 2, he left Judea and departed again to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Verse number 6. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me drink. For the disciples, look at verse number 8. For the disciples had gone away into the city to do what? Buy food. Now who did they go to buy food for? You're going to see in a minute they went to buy food, because here it is again. Jesus has delegated authority to them. Hello? They've been working based upon the authority that he's given them. He's tired. He's hungry. He sends them into the city. They go and get food. The text is going to show you in a minute. So why are they going to get him food? Why aren't they saying to him, come with us so you can get your own food? We tired too. You would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, that is the attitude that some people have towards their leaders. I'm tired too. I got a life too. Like Jesus, I'll go in the city with you to get some food, but I'm not going to go get it and bring it back to you. Matter of fact, we've been doing all the baptizing. Because the text says that his disciples were baptizing and he wasn't. So we've been doing all the work. So we all going to go to McDonald's and get us a number 3. But I'm not bringing it back to you. They could have had that attitude. But we do know that they went. We do know that they went. And I'm just showing you now the reciprocal relationship between the disciples. And just to show you that they brought food back to him, let's go to verse number 27. And at this point his disciples came, and they marveled that he talked with a woman, yet no one said, what do you seek, or why are you talking with her? That's a whole other thing we can unpack. But we'll leave that alone. The woman then left her water pot, went her way into the city, and said to the men, come see a man who told me all the things I ever did. Could this be the Christ? Verse 30, then they went out from the city and came to him. In the meantime, the disciples urged him, saying, Rabbi, eat. Which means what? They brought food back to Jesus. We went and got this food for you because we have a reciprocal relationship with you. We have a reciprocal relationship with you. We understand that we owe that to you. So they said, eat. And he said, I ain't hungry. Can you imagine? I'm going to get to this one point. Can you imagine how they must have felt? They went all the way into the city to bring him back, a number 3. And they hurried back. So it wouldn't get cold. And when they got back to him, he said, I am. I don't even want it. Hey, can you imagine? What kind of attitude would you have had? When it looked like the pastor did not honor your efforts. What kind of attitude? Real talk. What kind of attitude would you? This ain't the first time it happened. David was laying in his room. He was just laying on his bed one day. He said, oh, I would just love to have a drink from Bethlehem. And his men heard it, and they ran through troops, and they busted down a gate, and they went and got a pitcher of water, and they ran back through the troops, and they gave it to David, and when they gave it to David, David just poured it out. See how tight some of y'all getting right now? Because we don't understand the reciprocal nature of the relationship between the shepherd and the sheep. Because how many times has the shepherd run through troops and leaped over walls and knocked down stuff to meet the needs of the sheep? And how many times has the shepherd buried somebody that he didn't know just because they were kin to somebody that was in the church? How many times did that happen? And there was not even a Thanksgiving. It's a reciprocal relationship. And maybe I'm setting up the next pastor of the temple. No, seriously. Maybe I'm setting up the next pastor. Maybe what I'm doing is I'm digging in and creating a culture of honor so that the next pastor, whoever he or she is, should the Lord call me on or something, whoever that person is, will be able to move us to the next level. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Because when you got that right, when the relationship between the leader and the people, between the shepherd and the sheep, when there is a culture of honor, when he is or she is diligent to know the state of the flock, diligent to make sure that the flock is eating, diligent to study, diligent to move us into places of exposure where we can be exposed to greater and exposed to more. When he or she is diligent to do that, and then it is reciprocated, the honor is reciprocated, you can't stop a ministry. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. No matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, it does not matter. The money will never be an issue. God, I wish I could just talk the way I really want to talk. Because I've seen some really jacked up leaders. But there is a culture of honor. And the people, listen, it's the weirdest thing, but they're strong. And they're getting things done. And they're not regressing, they're not backtracking. Here's the first thing I want y'all to know. First thing in the book. It's 21 of them. I may not get to all 21. Oh. Go to Acts 2. I'm going to show you one more thing. Verse 43. We talked about this the other night. Then fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done through the apostles. Fear. This is not, they weren't afraid. This word fear means reverence. And here's what I love. Fear came upon every soul. Reverence came upon every soul. There was an awe. There was a respect. Watch this. Because the apostles' doctrine was being shared. And guess what happened? And many signs were done at the hands of the apostles. When there is a culture of honor, it creates an environment for miracles. Signs and wonders and miracles happen when there is a culture of honor. You know, listen, do you know why you feel good when you go to and y'all know I never ever call names. You know why you feel so good when you go to a T.D. Jakes conference? And you probably, and if you shook Bishop Jakes' hand, like you ain't had no real conversation with him, but can I tell you, because there is an awe. And you get from him, watch this, you get from him something that you need based upon your or your respect for him. You step into that environment. Who's ever been to a pastors and leaders conference, or a manpower conference, or a woman outreach conference? It's amazing, isn't it? I know I'm excited when I go in, even before I ever met Bishop Jakes. It took me a while to meet him. Even before I shook his hand and had a conversation with him, there was just something, because there is an environment and an atmosphere of honor. And signs, wonders, and you get delivered, you get your word, you get free. Those women were getting loosed. Those men were getting power. No, I'm dead serious. But because there was an environment of honor. So here's the first thing I want to share with y'all, and I'm done. Somebody just got your word. Signs, wonders, and miracles are going to start breaking out in this house again in the way they used to be when the culture of honor gets right. First thing, he says it this way: please don't feel that just because you're not preaching, teaching, or on the program, that your attendance does not matter. Listen to this. Being consistent, supportive, and present during worship services is the most underrated ministry in the church. Just being there, consistently. Just being there, consistently. Can I say something I hope y'all don't take it personal? I'm third generation, all right? I have never seen, and maybe it's just the era in which we live. I have never seen so many people in the pews take sabbaticals. Vacation used to be from Sunday night to Saturday night, but Sunday, I can speak on it. There are people here who go on 2 or 3 cruises a year. No, like missing Sunday cruises, or missing their leadership or ministry obligation, those kinds of trips. And we go together. It ain't like, okay, you gonna go on this one, but I'm gonna be here to cover. and then I'm gonna go on this one, but you're gonna be here. No, we gonna all go, or all 3. And we ain't gonna listen. And we ain't gonna, because we ain't with that texting to give, and we don't want to give. We don't want to give our credit card numbers to nobody. So we ain't gonna send our money. We'll bring it back. if we got any left. No, serious. Some of y'all who've been in church all your life, y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There used to be a time that if we had convocations or conferences, that was if you had a 2-week vacation, that was, in the Baptist church, we used to call them revival, that started with homecoming. So you had homecoming on that Sunday, so everybody would drive in from New York or wherever it was, and they might not make it for the Sunday morning service, but they'd be there for the 3 o'clock service, and we'd all eat, and we'd be there for 5 days. That was vacation time. Nobody takes vacation time for a minute. Nobody takes vacation time and says, you know what? I must be on my post. We used to rearrange our schedules. We used to do whatever we had to do, but we were going to be on our post. But here's what we want. We want the leader to rearrange his or her schedule. We got something going on. Matter of fact, we will plan the day that the wedding or the funeral is going to be on. And get mad if pastor can't do it on that day. If you can't say amen, say ouch. We need to be present. Just present. Just present. I was gone last week. Left Monday, came back Saturday. I'm going to take all next month off because I always take July off. Well, I ain't going to be going the whole month. But even at that. In many instances when the pastor ain't here, oh God, who preaching today? What if the pastor look at tithe records and say, oh, let me see. Oh, I ain't preaching. I ain't teaching today, pastor. I'm looking at that and ain't no support. They don't come to Tuesday night service. They don't do none of that kind of stuff. So I ain't sweating my clothes out. And some of them do. A few things. Your attendance gives you might want to write these things down. Your attendance gives your pastor another level of confidence. Another level of confidence. Number 2, empty seats affect your pastor's psyche, morale, and energy level. That one might not apply to me. No, serious. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Because, I've learned I just love preaching. I love preaching. I love teaching the word. I love it. So crowds don't move me. I was at a point that crowds used to move me, but crowds don't move me anymore. So if y'all had caught me about 10 years ago, I'd been wearing my fielding on my shoulders. Number 3, empty seats affect visitors' psyche, morale, and perception of the ministry. Your absence gives them permission to be absent, and it values the ministry. Elder Cope would tell you, Elder Cope and Elder Greer and I, we had this conversation. This is, again, a leadership moment. It's like if the people see the leaders, don't see the leaders doing it, why should they do it? And I'd be arguing on behalf of the people. Oh, they ain't no people that they have to do God themselves. But it's true. If you know someone is in leadership and they are inconsistent, not participating in the worship, okay, here's a big one. Don't believe in the ministry and are messy. That impacts. Do you know how many? Who's the young? Somebody told me about a young lady had a conversation. Said, I love my experience at the church, but I'm sitting back there and they back there gossiping, and I said, I ain't coming back. It does matter. Your attendance does matter. Your morale does matter. Your being in place does matter. Last one, I think. The pastor has to work twice as hard. Watch this, because the extra meeting he or she had to have with you was covered in Bible study last week. A lot of stuff is addressed from the pulpit. You don't even need. A lot of stuff is addressed from the pulpit that if we just listen, we didn't have no. You got your word right there. I know that's true. Do you know how many meetings I've had to have to repeat some things I've said? And more of the meetings, watch this, is you telling me what the solution is. Like, I don't get to do a lot of talking. Like, Bishop, this is what's going on in my life, and then you go on and tell me what you're going to do. I'm dead serious. You would be surprised. But if you just got the word. Just got the word. Or even if you don't get the word, just have whoever your accountability partner is with, y'all discuss it. Get the MP3, CD, whatever we doing now, get it. Last thing. More than an appreciation service. Now, this is from my heart. Because y'all know, I get on Elder Colbert every year that we do an appreciation service. Elder Colbert, I'm saying this, I'm confessing my sin. Every year, I'm like, why y'all do that? I don't want an appreciation service. Appreciation services depress me. Because if this is how I'm appreciated, I would rather not be appreciated. I'm just telling y'all my heart. Elder Colbert, how long have I been saying that? And God bless people do it, and I appreciate the effort, but the result does not reflect the cause. More than an appreciation service or a birthday banquet, I don't want none of that either. Most pastors would rather have a packed church for Bible study and prayer meetings. I would rather have consistent attendance here. Because I keep telling y'all, like, every Sunday morning is a conference to me. Like, I get more nervous preaching here than I do preaching out. Like, I'm more nervous on a Sunday morning than I was when I preached the main conference at Full Gospel. I was when I preached the main conference at Mecca. When I was when I went out Sweet Holy Spirit and all these other places. I get nuts, butterflies. I would rather see a packed house than a banquet. Because the banquets are for y'all anyway. It is. You go get your hair done and go get your dresses and you're looking real good. And I'm saying, we could have just kind of like passed the collection plate around. And y'all told me next Sunday when I was in the door how much you love and appreciate me. Understand what I'm saying? And I could have been paying, I could have been paid my car off and all that stuff, but you got on red bottoms and glitter dresses. Not the banquet in my honor. Let's go to another banquet. Like, and I'll get dressed up with you to go. I appreciate those things, but I'm telling you what I would rather see. I would rather see consistency. I would rather see I would rather see us prioritizing TCI. I would rather see those things. That's what I would rather. I'm telling you, that's what I would rather see. That's what I would rather see. I don't like a lot of attention. I hate attention. Whether y'all know it or not, I am what is called an ambivert. An extrovert and an introvert that's mixed. And the only reason I'm an ambivert is because, like, I love people, but I hate crowds. And my gift demands that I be on the stage. But anybody who knows me, when I ain't on stage, I'm behind the scene. If you've ever spent any time with me, you'll see I talk more up here than I do. I can sit down and have a dinner with you, and if you don't say nothing to me, I don't say nothing to you. around me any amount of time. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I used to be painfully shy as a child. Like, I gotta make conversation with you. If I'm with you, Kim, I gotta make conversation. Because after about 5 minutes, I'm talked out. I really am. I'm done. You got to be the one carrying the conversation, because I just don't talk a lot. I really don't. I really don't. Who's been with me in the account experience that? I know more hands. yeah, she makes me talk. Elder Cobra makes me talk. We try to make Troy not talk. But if you ever been, I'm a real talker. That's not me. I don't like social settings. I'm done. I'm done. The Lord just led me to deal with this tonight. I may not even deal with the other 20. But one thing I want you, I just want to see you consistently. And I'm not like numbering people. I'm not like counting people, because if you count people, it means you count on people. Right? But on the contrary, there ought to be people that you know you can count on. And some days, if I see 3 people in a particular ministry, and the other days I see 10 in a particular ministry, then y'all don't know how it affects me. I'm wondering, before I come upstairs, how many people working in the parking lot? How many ushers showed up today? Do we have anybody singing? Or is everybody going on another gathering? Any questions? I'm done. Any questions? I want us to talk.